All right, we're rolling. All right, let's get this thing going. I think we're safe here. I think we're social distanced enough. So hello everybody. I'm here with Carl Cadwell, or Summer Dregs, as many of you know him. Carl has been actively involved in the music scene here in Chattanooga for over a decade at least. He runs a studio over in Eastlake where he lives and has done production for Nick Lutzko, Different Diva, Suevo.
Yeah, I've done work for Kindora, Baby Mother, myself.
Yeah. I asked Carl to come in today so that we could do our next installment of the Favorite Albums video series and ask Carl to talk about one of his favorite albums of all time, which is DJ Shadow's Endtroducing. Carl, really what we're trying to do is have a conversation. We want to know people's stories. We want to know why, what your favorite album is and why it's your favorite album, and like what's the backstory, how did it become your favorite album?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite albums, but it's my first favorite album.
Yeah.
It was the first album I really ran into the ground. And actually, I sent you kind of a list of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
And I realized that more than half the albums on that list were directly influenced by this album. What really drew me, and I think a lot of people, to this album, and of course the music is really great, and that's the first thing obviously, but when a concept and the music come together, it's something really special.
Yeah. He
He would dig up old records, usually obscure, usually that stuff nobody had heard of.
It's like recycling, musical recycling.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, like DJ Shadow was not the first one to do this. He's kind of like in a long tradition of that.
Yeah.
He did it in a very different way, and he kind of had some new tools that they didn't have.
And obviously there are many people who had been doing that and been creative, but he, you know, you listen to the samples and you listen to his tracks, and it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
How did this album become your favorite album? Tell us your story. When did you first hear it? When did you first buy it? And then like kind of the journey. How did it get close to your heart?
A documentary came out called Dark Days, and it's about people living underground in New York City in abandoned subways, in the tunnels. And he did the soundtrack, and it's basically remixes of songs from this album. And the marriage of those two narratives, of the kind of like feeling of this, which is like nostalgic because it's using all his old records, but also like badass and something totally new. The marriage of that with like people living underground in like, you know, desperate situations, but they kind of also like love it as their home, it was just magical, and that made me just be like, what is that music? And that's how I came to get this album.
Do you have a copy of this on vinyl? And
Yes.
like when was the first time you bought the record for yourself?
I didn't buy it. My girlfriend at the time, my wife now, bought it for me. My favorite sample on here is Twin Peaks. Yeah. So towards the end of the TV show, when the tall man shows up and is like, it's happening again. You know, I heard that on here, and then watching the TV show later, that just gave me shivers. I was like, I know this. But that's what it all feels like. It feels like all these echoes from all these times in the past.
Yeah.
That just kind of like echoed through his music. And I was thinking about how this influenced me, and I was, when I first heard it, very influenced by the sounds on it, which I'm not so much anymore. It's meditative and has a lot of depth, but is also badass. That's how I discovered Radiohead, was through Björk.
Yeah.
Yeah, was Selma song. Anyway, that's not.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks so much for coming in, Carl. This is a fantastic record. If you haven't heard it, go check out DJ Shadow's Endtroducing. It is on Rolling Stone Top 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, which is impressive for an album that was made in 1996. But that's how influential it was. So we've got this in stock, and I've got some more on the way, so if you don't have a copy, pick up a copy. We'll have more of these conversations about favorite albums in the future. Give us a shout out, tell us what your favorite album is, why it's your favorite album, and if we don't have it, we'll get it in stock. So until next time.